been a big week. It's been a big year. He's appearing now on the society pages, for God's sake, and the gossip page of the New Zealand Herald. For our next guest, the leader of the ACT Party, David Seymour. And he's got some key things, though, to celebrate, things that he can tick off. In his end-of-year performance reviews with the media, he's been saying, gosh, we've got a bit of disproportionate influence. In other words, he's very proud and happy with being part of the government and of having a significant impact upon government policy of the day. He's also admitted that he's made a mistake, which is something you don't often hear politicians say. He got Winston Peters wrong. In actual fact, he's found him a constructive person to deal with, and he enjoys dealing with, in actual fact, in a very professional sense. Although I wouldn't see much of Winston because he's hobnobbing through the European tour capitals as I talk to you now, I think. Anyhow, but he's had a huge year, and now he's just ticked off something else that would suggest that his year is just getting better. And that's ACT Party leader David Seymour, and he joins us now. David, welcome to the show. I was surprised to see you in the gossip pages of the New Zealand Herald. How did you enjoy that experience?
Oh, not much. I've never sought to put my private life in public. I like people to judge me on the policies and positions I take in politics rather than the positions I take in any other part of my life. But I guess there's some interest, and people can read about it if they want.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's not a negative story in any sense of the word, but there you go. You have to
No.
say a series of rumours you've just atomized, but there you go. All right, now, just joking. Moving on. This week you have launched. Now, tell me the background to this. Have you launched the first charter school, or is it that you've approved it, or you've gone there to say this is where it's going to be? Could you give us some background on that?
Basically, all three of those. So, Mastery Schools New Zealand is based on a successful chain of schools called Mastery Schools Australia. We went to Christchurch. By we, I mean me and the Authorisation Board and the Charter Schools Authority, and we announced that we've signed a contract. We actually signed the contract last Friday with a couple of people who are philanthropists and really solid Christchurch citizens. They're going to be sponsoring the school. That means that they have the relationship with the government to deliver the service, so they're accountable. And we went to the site where the school will be in Christchurch, and we announced that it's going to be open with children coming through the door on the 1st of February next year. So all three of those things. And the thing I like about this school is the innovation. So, whenever I look at a charter school, I say, well, what it's like those old ASB bank ads. What makes this bank different? And what makes this school different is they have formed a relationship with the University of Canterbury, and specifically the teacher training arm of it, because their basic observation is the teacher training college is filled with people who are learning to be teachers, and most of them, if not all of them, have to have a job to put themselves through the uni, and usually that job will be working in a bar or a restaurant or a clothing store, or some sort of job out in the economy. Wouldn't it make more sense if you paid them to work at a school? So they have in each classroom, one teacher who is a good teacher, a senior teacher, and three what they call assistant teachers, who are part-time students. So they're solving two problems. One is, I don't think there's enough on-the-job training for teachers. You go through a university, you get very little practical experience of classroom control. And I've got to say, taking on 30 kids for 6 hours a day is not for the faint-hearted. And if all you have to prepare yourself is a lot of theoretical knowledge from university, they will eat you alive, and that's why so many teachers quit after the first couple of years. So they've solved that problem, but they've also solved the problem that every school I go to says, oh, we need more money for more resources. And what these guys have done is said, look, it's about 12 grand per kid to educate a kid per year. You've got a class of 25, that's $300,000. Can you rent a classroom, pay a teacher, and pay 3 part-time assistants on student rates? Of course you can, and that's exactly what they're doing. So it's very, very cool. It's going to make a massive difference. They've got a tremendous track record in Australia. They've gone from 1 school to 5 since 2021, and that's the kind of opportunity we're going to be offering through charters.
So this is the Jessops, is that right? Joe Jessup and Dave Jessup. Is that the philanthropist you're
That's
talking
right.
about?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so they're the
Yeah.
philanthropists. It's really interesting who they've got on their board too of Mastery Schools, because it includes the Labor Mayor of Christchurch, Gary Moore. So there's obviously a
Yep.
bipartisan or non-partisan nature about Mastery Schools, is there?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I mean, they've partnered really well. They've got Gary Moore. They've got a partnership with Ngāi Tahu. What I find when it comes to education is that there's a whole lot of people who know that what we're doing isn't working. I mean,
Yeah.
we spend $20 billion a year. If you divide that by the number of people, then the government at the moment is basically spending about $350,000 for each kid that's born today. Will get about 350 grand through their lifetime. Forget about inflation, all that. That's about how it works out. Now, if I said to you, here's 350 grand and a baby, can you get them educated in the next 18 years with 350K? I reckon you could do that. But we are failing as a government to do that, and it's not just our government, it's been happening for years and getting worse in the last couple of decades. So we absolutely need to start thinking about how we do stuff differently. And most people from what I call the old left, Willie Jackson's an old union guy. His Manukau Urban Māori Authority's been running a charter school, mainly by his wife Tanya. You get people like Vicky Buck, another former Labour mayor. She was part of the charter school movement. Ngāi Tahu have been pretty committed to it. So people from all sorts of political views and perspectives are pretty interested in how do we do stuff differently in education.
Okay. So this is number one. How many others do you or have you approved this year to commence next year as charter schools?
So there's going to be 7 announced. There'll be another 6 announced next week. We just did one that we had ready next week, and there'll be probably a few more announcements in the next 10 days or so. But there'll be 7 schools that will open the gates on the 1st of February or thereabouts. And then there's funding for another 8 new ones. And then there's funding for up to 35 state schools to convert. So there may be 1 or 2 of those immediately, like starting next year, but it's more likely that because you've got to take an existing community on the journey, as it were, and explain to them the benefits and all the rest, and show the teachers are still going to have their jobs, and ultimately things are going to be better because you'll get more money that you can use flexibly, but the same amount of money overall. And you have to be accountable for student attendance and student achievement, or you lose your contract. So there's a bit to work through. But I hope we'll see up to 35 state schools convert to charter status before the election.
It's a big call, though, to change a nice, secure stream of funding with not too much responsibility into one in which I'm going to risk my funding. That is going to be a big task for those 35 schools, or up to 35 schools, to take on, David.
It is, but what I find in education, there's so much demand for ways to do things differently and do things new. And when you say to them, look, as a charter school, we're going to work out how much money we're spending on you before, and then we're just going to give you the cash. You can use it however you like, but if the kids don't show up and the kids aren't learning according to our testing, then we'll shut you down. And some people just want easy street. But I think, on balance, most people in education actually want that challenge and that flexibility.
Okay, so this one's going to be in Christchurch. The 6 you're going to announce next week. Are they geographically spread throughout the country, or are they in sort of 1 or 2 major areas?
About half of them are in Auckland, which is, I guess you'd expect. It's
As you'd expect,
big part of the population and younger population on average in Auckland. There'll be others in the rest of the North Island. I can't remember at this point if there's any more in the South Island in the first 7, but there'll certainly be more South Island schools in the first 15 overall.